Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Morning. A very warm welcome to all of you. There are a few more guests walking in, but I guess we can start on time. Good morning to all the viewers who joined us online this morning for this excellent event organized by International Fiscal Association Chennai branch and MMA together, bringing to you a very, very special conference on contemporary trends in international taxation. So to start the proceedings of the day, may I now invite the dignitaries for the inaugural session to occupy their seats on the dais. Group Captain R. Vijayakumar, Visesh Seva Medal, Advocate Mr. Butani, Mr. K Gopala Desikan, and CA Mr. TG Suresh. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome them with a round of applause. So all good things have to begin with divine blessings. So keeping that in view, may I invite the dignitaries on the dais and also Mr. PVSS Prasad to join them on the dais to light the Kutuvilaka. Please come, please come. Yeah. Thanks to all the dignitaries. Well begun is half done. So let's get going. Mr. Mukesh, Butani, am I audible, sir? This is Group Captain Venkatraman from MMA.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yeah, absolutely. You're audible and your video is also very clear. To start the proceedings, I invite Group Captain R. Vijayakumar, who's been heading MMA since 2007. He's the Executive Director at MMA, former Air Force officer who has been commended by the President of India with the Visesh Seva Medal for his meritorious service in the Indian Air Force. May I now request Group Captain Vijayakumar to deliver the welcome address, please.
Thank you, Venkat. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's always a pleasure to join an event like this, where a lot of intellectuals are waiting to hear something very. When our dear friend, in fact, we joined to do this solely because our good friend Suresh is there. When Suresh asks anything, we don't say no. That's why MMA has got into that. And thanks for choosing MMA to partner with you. Why we choose this to partner? Because MMA, we do some 700 events in a year. Just to give a background about MMA, some of you may not know about MMA. Established in 1956, we do some 800 events in a year. We got about 8,000 members. This building belongs to us. It's about 24,000 square foot. We got state-of-art library with some 1.25 million library books and e-books. So we do lots of work. We do CSR, we do FCRA, we have chapters spread almost everywhere in Tamil Nadu and Puducherry. Why we are telling ours is to propagate management movement in this part of the country. Anybody want to share the knowledge, we'll be the first one to go there and take this knowledge. That's why this event is taken live to large number of people who watch. Not only they watch it on live, it will be there for record where the people can always watch it, and it will add as a reference point for many of the professionals in the tax that what is being talked in one of the conferences organized by IFA. That's the idea, that we take this live to large number, thousands of people watch that. And we are indeed privileged. Why we choose this subject? We know today the globalization and India being made in India prospect, where a lot of manufacturing that to happen. For that, we need a lot of collaboration. You must have seen a few days back, there's an FTA agreed on automobiles, the FTA agreed on G20, inter-foreign ministers agreement, where a lot of concessions have been extended to some of the people to come and do business here, or some of the tax havens place where the people do business. Now, a lot of things are being discussed. There is also one thought: every corporate would set up shops in India from outside the world should pay a flat 15% tax. So there are so much of confusion. The people, the normal readers like us, especially tax professionals, and especially who had deal with this issues, because we strongly believe rule of law is very, very important. The compliance. We have a curriculum in MMA where we teach rule of law. If that is not followed, it's going to be a serious issue. One such initiative was, I must compliment internationally our IFA and especially TG Suresh and our chief guest, our guest advocate Mukesh Butani joined us from Delhi for doing this event, which I'm quite sure will really enlighten and inspire so many people to learn. Let me have the privilege of warmly welcome Mr. Mukesh Butani. He is the chairman of IFA India. Warmly welcome you, sir. He joined us online. Next time we would like to have you in person in Chennai. It will be a pleasure to host you in Chennai and hear your views. It will add tremendous value to the people who are here this morning. Then our chief guest for this morning is not new to MMA. He's a part of MMA team, MMA family, because TVS is one of the biggest supporters of MMA from the time MMA was established. Mr. K Gopala Desikan, CFO, TVS Motor Company. Very warm welcome to you, sir. There could be nobody better than him, because TVS is the one which has made a foray into so many international collaborations, and so many international products are done, so that he knows exactly where he has got issues and how this conference is going to help us. Let me also warmly welcome our dear friend, Mr. Suresh, chairman of IFA Chennai chapter, and all the dignitaries, all the guests who are joined from institute, other organizations, corporate. Good friend, Mr. Kannan, Principal Chief Commissioner of GST, who has also joined us. Again, Vice Chairman of IFA Chennai chapter, and a lot of dignitaries. My name is not intentional, it's only ignorance. I would have missed some good names. Thanks so much. And thank you for joining us this morning. I extend a warm welcome. Also welcome all the viewers watching the program live on all the channels, including YouTube channel of IFA and MMA. And please, as usual, if you have any question, there's numbers flash on the screen. You can send it across. Although all the people who are here, there is in your question slip, in your program sheet is given, there's a scan QR code is given. You can just scan and send your question. So you don't have to worry. You don't have to bother at the time of listening to the speaker itself. You don't have to wait till the end. You can just scan, send me a question. All the questions will be compiled and presented before the speakers to respond to all your questions. Thank you so much once again, and it's a pleasure to have you with us this morning. Have a great day, and look forward to seeing you more often in MMA. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mukesh Butani is the chairman of IFA India and is going to be the moderator for this session. Mr. Mukesh Butani is the founder and managing director of BMR Legal, a law firm which was set up in the year 2010. He is an acknowledged expert in the area of international tax and transfer pricing policy, controversy, and advocacy. He has participated in many committees of the Indian government and deposed before them on a host of tax issues pertaining to e-commerce, APA, Safe Harbor, GAAR, and so many other issues. He is also part of the Kelkar Task Force reforms of 2002. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege inviting Mr. Mukesh Butani, who joined us this morning virtually, to make his opening remarks and set the tone for the conference.
Thank you very much. I'd like to first apologize, start with apologizing because I couldn't be personally there. It's largely because of my board commitment today in Delhi. Thank you, Group Captain R. Vijayakumar, firstly for allowing us to use the MMA facility. It looks fabulous on the screen, and I promise you I will certainly make it a point to visit the facility next time when I'm in Chennai. Thank you for all the dignitaries on the dais, my IFA friends and colleagues, Suresh and Prasad and Sriram and all the others, who have put this excellent program together. The theme of the conference is very apt. I'm not going to necessarily get into what the conference's technical agenda is, but just in the next 10-15 minutes, share what's happening around us and the nature of profound changes and the change in the landscape that we are experiencing, which is going to have a bearing on all that is being discussed in the IFA Chennai branch today, and what we will debate in the wider international tax fraternity. Well, first, let me start with what's the big news in our country and in our capital, which is India's G20 presidency. As we can see, it's taking a role in shaping international tax reforms, and India is at the center stage with a strong stance with the international community insofar as its support for the two-pillar discussion is concerned. As one of the foremost countries, India, which embarked in taxing the digital economy, first time the world heard about a virtual permanent establishment happened to be India. We are now displaying our ability to adapt to the advancing economy. At the same time, India has expressed its willingness to move ahead with cooperation and dialogue. And as a matter of fact, India's G20 presidency theme is well expressed with this Sanskrit term called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means one earth, one family, one future, and that's really the core. Considering the growing importance, the topic of this seminar, Contemporary Trends in International Tax, is relevant. We are clearly at a very critical juncture of multilateral developments, and the next few months, or probably a year, will define this landscape wherein India will be seen as playing a very important role. Very quickly, the ongoing process of G20 summit and its relevance to this seminar, which is very timely. We saw 24th and 25th of February, very close to the city of Chennai in Bengaluru, the finance ministers and the heads of central bank governors of the G20 met, and they have committed to enhancing international tax policy, cooperation, and steering the global economy towards securing strong, sustainable, balanced, and an inclusive growth. Very quickly, what the summary is of the G20, which concluded just less than a year back. Commitment to swift implementation of two-pillar solution, which finds a mention in the conference as well. Urging the OECD to finalize the Pillar 1 such that the multilateral convention can be signed in the first half of 2023. Welcoming the release of Globe Implementation Framework, which facilitates the implementation of its rules and common approach. We saw some of the clarifications coming on that front just in the past couple of days. Welcoming the steps taken by countries to implement the Globe rules and call upon the inclusive framework for finalization of negotiation on what is popularly called STTR, a subject to tax rule. Recognizing the need for coordinated efforts towards capacity building to implement two-pillar international packages, and this is very relevant for countries in the African subcontinent, and calling upon the OECD to conclude the work on the implementation packages with regard to cryptocurrency and crypto assets regulatory framework. Most of these statements do mirror what was concluded in the G20 summit in Bali in 2022. Despite the consistency in commitments, we also heard the French finance minister raising concerns, though none of it is supported so far from why he said so, but he did raise questions in Bengaluru last week on implementation of Pillar 1, specifically picking on United States, Saudi Arabia, and India blocking the discussions. And we will see in the next few days what he actually meant. The concerns raised by digital companies on Pillar 1 are important. Just to take in point, the in-scope companies with turnover about $20 billion, a joint response was issued by Netflix, Viaplay, Sky, Warner Brothers, Discovery, and Paramount about the Pillar 1 measures limiting the market access, particularly with reference to growing markets such as India and China, and suggesting the removal of DSTs, the digital services tax, and other relevant measures which are critical for the success of Pillar 1. Several other reservations include on the draft multilateral convention provisions, particularly one, it doesn't contain an appropriate remedy for any party subjected to such forms of unilateral levy. It doesn't provide a complete definition of what are these levies, and hence they are discriminatory in nature. This also relates back to the action that was taken by the United States Trade Commissioner with regard to what is popularly called a 301 proceedings, lacking an effective mechanism for avoidance of double taxation and providing a timely and efficient process to determine whether a particular transaction is liable or not for such unilateral levies. So that sums up the concerns on Pillar 1 so far. On Pillar 2, which is the global minimum tax, we have seen a rush of activities by various jurisdictions. To name a few, Hong Kong, as late as last week, presented its 23-24 budget to the Legislative Council, implementing the minimum tax of 15% under Pillar 2. Singapore, just a fortnight ago, presented the budget and confirmed not just its intent to implement the minimum top-up tax, but also looked at large multinationals with annual revenues of 750 million, which is also the threshold for Pillar 2, who are operating in Singapore, and look at effectively commencing its measures from January 1, 2025. United Kingdom, on the other hand, introduced the income inclusion rule, which will apply to large UK headquartered multinational groups, which will force them to pay the top-up tax where their foreign operations have an effective tax rate of less than 15%. IMF, which had been seen as a dormant player focusing only on policy, it's amazing to see early in February 2023, last month, introduced or released a report on what they call it as the International Corporate Tax Reform. Some of the findings of the IMF are very, very revealing. It does acknowledge that the international tax system ought to be more robust to deal with tax spillovers, and it should be better equipped for digitalization and also modestly raise the corporate tax revenues. IMF expects the following effects, economic effects of the reforms. It believes that Pillar 1 would reallocate at least 2% of the total profits of multinational enterprises, mainly from low tax investment hubs to other countries, and raise the global corporate tax rate revenues by $12 billion. It also expects that the Pillar 2 will raise the global corporate tax revenues by 5.7% as it stands today. It further says that multinational investments may decline modestly in the face of enhancement in the effective tax rates. However, it expects that the effective tax rates would rise from the direct effect of the globe rules. And from a medium to long-term perspective, the tax revenues will be reduced from a competitiveness standpoint, and there will be reduced scope for profit shifting. Excuse me. More importantly, IMF also said that the cross-border tax avoidance will reduce substantially with the implementation of these measures. The United Nations is not very far away. It is also looking at these changes in the landscape from a emerging markets and a developing market standpoint. On 23rd of November 2022, it approved a resolution to adopt the new international cooperation framework. The resolution was advanced by representatives from Nigeria on behalf of UN members of the group of African states. The rationale of the move to develop a new cooperative framework within the United Nations is merely to be able to strengthen the international tax cooperation and make it more inclusive and more effective. The resolution, and I quote, "The evaluation of additional options including the possibility of developing an international tax cooperation framework or instrument that is developed and agreed upon through a UN intergovernmental process. This explains the relevance of United Nations in this changing landscape. Having said that, we also should table concerns that are expressed by others. The European Union has stated that the OECD G20 inclusive framework, which puts together 141 jurisdictions and is committed to multilateral solution, is creating a new parallel track of discussion and is really not the right answer. The United States, on the other hand, disagreed with the resolution's implication, and there is not presently a highly inclusive forum working to strengthen international cooperation on tax, and stated that the wording of the draft resolution will tear down the process under the OECD G20 framework. Having said that, there is a lot of support we are experiencing from developing nations. A case in point is the views expressed by the representative of Nigeria, where they said that most countries find it difficult to accept the legitimacy of international norms, that they have no effective voice in shaping the global framework. Similarly, on the Indian side, we are experiencing a lot of changes, particularly on evolving jurisprudence surrounding international tax. I don't intend to steal the thrill away from my friend and colleague Sriram's presentation on dispute, but I just thought I'll make a couple of observations with regard to the changing landscape. We saw the Indian Supreme Court in early part of 2021 highlighting a very important international tax principle, which is also articulated in what we popularly call Article 31 of the Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties, which is that the treaties should be interpreted in good faith. This landmark decision, besides looking at the issues that were confronting the software industry, did make some very important observations, which tend to make the world look towards India with phenomenal respect for its judicial system. It affirmed the primacy of treaty law over domestic law. It emphasized on the principle of liberal interpretation of treaties. It also looked at government's attempt to override treaty obligation by way of unilateral retrospective amendment and overruled. It also looked at the importance of OECD commentary despite reservations made by our policymakers. And hence, these important principles and these aspects of judiciary make us truly as a proud nation. The budget proposals of 2023 are an important direction by the Indian Finance Minister to maintain the continuity and stability of Indian taxation, simplify and rationalize the provisions, and more importantly, reduce the compliance burden with a view to promote an entrepreneurial spirit and provide relief to small marginalized taxpayers. With this, several amendments were made. I'm not going to talk about that, but just made some reference to startups. India is now the third largest ecosystem for startups, and rightly so, the government extended the tax benefits for eligible firms to March 31, 2024. It also looked at carry forward and set of provisions, again in the context of relaxation to startups, and the deduction of 100% of profits with respect to 10 consecutive years from the date of incorporation. It has now been extended from startups which were incorporated after April 2016 to April 2023, and that date has been extended by 1 more year. On dispute resolution, we all await the reduction in the pendency of appeals before Commissioner Appeals, and hopefully with 100 joint commissioners now at the disposal of the dispute resolution mechanism, we hope that many of the disputes will be cleared out. Finally, I'd like to talk about the role of IFA in shaping the international tax framework. It clearly plays a very pivotal role. It is a not-for-profit organization. It doesn't lobby and do any advocacy by the governments. Instead, governments invite IFA to share their research and their independent view. And hence the objective is clearly study and advancement of international and comparative law in regard to public finance, and in particular to international tax and comparative fiscal system. We achieve these objectives with our annual congresses and events such as this. The essential character of IFA is scientific. We choose our subjects very carefully, as you have seen in the Chennai event as well. I just like to close by talking about the IFA Berlin Congress, which concluded a couple of months back. And the two important topics were big data and tax, and group approach and separate entity approach in domestic and international law. Of course, the latter one is not relevant for India, given our system. In the 2023 IFA Cancun, we are discussing two important topics: shifting of corporate losses, the new profit shifting strategy, and the good faith principle in domestic and international law. I'd like to end over here on a note, first, to thank you all for inviting me, and second, to wish you all the best for rest of the day on this important deliberation. Thank you very much.
Mr. Butani, thank you so much for your insightful address, particularly India's role in driving the international tax regime through G20. Now, Mr. Gopala Desikan is a qualified chartered accountant, holds an MBA from UK. He is a director and group CFO of Sundaram Clayton, as well as TVS Motor Company Limited. He's been with the TVS Group for about 33 years and has handled various functions, including direct taxation, treasury, risk management, and M&A activities. He also serves as a director on the board of several companies. May now invite Mr. Gopala Desikan to deliver his address, please.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I must thank Mr. Mukesh Butani for giving a very insightful opening remarks. He has covered most of the issues which are important for today's discussion. He has also touched upon the thought process in the government, the deliberations which are happening. He has taken us through a very important session. And speaking after that is not so easy. So let me try to confine myself to non-technical issues, not really going into the subject, generally giving a context for the topic for the session for the day. I must thank the association, more particularly Mr. Suresh and Capt, for considering me, inviting me for this session. Thank you so much. It's always easy to sit there. It's very difficult to be here. Sometimes it's easy to give a lecture immediately after the lunch, but extremely difficult at the start of the session when everyone is very, very fresh, agile, and alert. Therefore, let me try to confine myself as brief as possible. Tax has always been very, very special to me. I started my career as a taxman. I was more seen in the corridors of the department in the early 90s, attending hearings, following up for the various issues, referring to the tax magazines, Taxman, ITR, and CTR, making a reference about the case laws gone against, which are overruled. Quite a very, very memorable, very special memories. Then I have moved to the factory side. I was in the factory in TVS Motor for almost 10 years. back to Chennai leading this position. Therefore, tax is something very, very special, a very evolving subject. A lot of changes. Everybody has to be top on the issues on a daily basis with various changes, amendments, court rulings, nullifying those court rulings, a lot of activities. There are very eminent speakers here. I know most of them here. Mr. Sriram is here, Mr. Prasad is here. And I'm sure you will have a very great, eventful day and session today. I thought I should set a context for this subject, what we are talking about. The context is, let me try to talk more about where are we now as a country, what is being looked at going forward, what is the outlook, and what is the relevance for that outlook to this international taxation. Let me try to touch on that. Let me try to put this in three buckets. Where are we on FDI today? How our GDP has grown over a period of time? Where are we on the digitalization front, which is extremely important, relevant? I always tell this in my office. There are many things which we need to unlearn. There are many things which we need to learn. Particularly for, I'm seeing a lot of youngsters here. My only request, please give importance, allocate disproportionately your time on the digital world, on the analytic front, on the artificial intelligence. That's going to be the future. If we miss the bus, it's extremely difficult to catch. So my sincere request to start with is please learn new things for our own benefit. Coming to the FDI, which I spoke about. Since 1947, we have received $950 billion since 1947. Out of that 950 billion, 500 billion we have received in the last 90 months. It's a record. In the last 90 months, we have received $500 billion. FDI reflects the trust, the consistency in our policy, the consistency in our approach, the economic, social, and political front stability. Therefore, FDI reflects, it's a very important parameter to judge where as a country we are moving on. Again, this 500 million, whatever I have mentioned as the last 90 months receipt, it was received from 162 countries. It's not from one or two countries. We have received from 162 countries. Again, we have received in 61 sectors. It's not in one sector we have received this money. In 61 sectors we have received. And again, it is not received in 7 cities of this country. We have received in 31 states and union territories of our country. What does it reflect? It reflects the breadth and depth of the confidence the outside world has on India. It has a very important relevance to the subject which we are going to discuss today, the international taxation. Our exposure to various treaties, our exposure to transfer pricing issues, lot is there. Another aspect of FDI, India is post-pandemic, it has become more effective to the outside world. We are regarded as the factory of the world. India is going to be the manufacturing hub going forward. Many things are getting diverted from Europe and China to India. We have the capability, we have the manufacturing skills, we have huge skilled labor in this country. Therefore, the future is going to be for us. Again, India is regarded as, by the world, as a service provider. The exports, which is around 2% to the world overall exports today, is expected to go up by 4%, 4 to 4% by 2030. All these things only reflects the confidence the outside world has on India. This will only augment the FDI flows into the country. This is the first piece which I thought I should tell you. Now let's go to the GDP. We are, I think, at $3.5 trillion today. The first trillion took 67 years. First trillion took 67 years. The second trillion took 8 years. And the third we did in 5 years. And our target is by 2030 to go to 7 trillion. Very much possible. Very much possible. Again, the average working population, it's a UN report. It's not something which I am saying on my own. The UN report says by 2030, 24% of the incremental people required for employment globally will be supplied by India. Very important statistics. Again, what does it mean? More employment opportunities, more income, more investments, more spending. Again, the circle starts with more income. More economic activity is expected going forward. And therefore, the outlook on GDP, what we are talking about, is very much possible. Very much possible. The third front, the most important, is the digitalization, which I touched about. That's going to be the order of the day tomorrow. The way this country, it's something an unprecedented one. The pace at which and the depth at which we are proceeding on the digitalization front. We can see all this in the government offices on land registration, the way documents are handled, the way payments are handled, the way investments are handled. I can very authoritatively say, we do have an NBFC company. We have a target to process an application in seconds now. We don't want a customer to wait. That's the speed at which things are happening in the country today. Therefore, we have a very distinct advantage on the digitalization front. Therefore, these are quite relevant for our exposure on international taxation. More inflows are expected. The market capitalization is expected to go up. More domestic investments are going to happen. A lot of activities, This is just a beginning. I can also tell you one thing. I can take references. Captain talked about TVS and otherwise I was not planning to talk about it, but let me now touch about. Earlier, we used to have our exports. We were exporting to few countries. Today, we are exporting to more than 80 countries. We have a huge plant in Indonesia. We have a plant in Europe. We have a plant in UK. We have a plant in US. In my days of handling the tax, I knew only two sections. 195, I will see whether tax is to be deducted, or look for 197, I think, to get some tax-related concessions or reduced TDS. Now, a lot of things are there. The transfer pricing, a lot of cross-border transactions, a lot of consolidation is expected to happen going forward. Therefore, the international taxation, with the way India is moving forward, is very, very important. And thanks to the association for choosing this topic today, which is not only an important and relevant one in today's context, but it's going to be very important going forward. Let me also touch about few things which have happened. Let me not take too much time because good speakers are here. I don't want to waste your time. But few things I thought I should talk to you. One good thing that has happened, there is one Delhi High Court decision which on the tax residency, they have given a clear indication that that's a very foolproof for determining the residential status. That's a very welcome one. And also, in the opening remarks, the reference was made about the dispute-related resolutions. We also look for a Supreme Court decision on a dispute resolution on dividend taxation, I believe. Just to give a brief on that facts, there is a tax treaty between India and Netherlands, I think, and Switzerland for a 10% dividend taxation. It also gives the most preferred nation clause, which talks about if any treaty executed after that with any OECD country has to have, then if there is a concessional rate, that is to be applied to these treaties also. I think if I'm right, that's the fact. I believe there is a tax treaty executed with a OECD country at 5%, and that is being disputed. And also that's the expectation of those two countries. And we look forward for that decision from the Supreme Court, which will give a complete clarity going forward on the most preferred nation clause. There are a few things which I'm sure you will be discussing today. One is the flipping structures and the angel tax, which is proposed in the budget now. Also on the equalization levy, there are certain tax credit which is possible, not possible, certain disputes are there. But as a business people, what we look for, we only look for a consistency, a stability, a certainty on the tax laws. Nobody is now looking for a tax haven or a tax saving or a tax planning today. With global taxation aligning to 15%, where India is also moving towards that, we only want a certain environment. Associations like this are playing a very important role. They act as a bridge. They are the enablers to advise on the right things about the nuances, about the do's and don'ts before we get into any investment mode. I only appreciate and I wish they continue this good job going forward. Coming to today's session, my sincere request, please take it quite seriously. It's going to be an eventful day. It's something which is very, very important going forward. The way I have explained where as India we are going, this international taxation, understanding about the various issues on international taxation. And again, I always used to tell this in my office. When I was handling tax matters, as I said earlier, only 2-3 sections, Now with our exposure to various countries as manufacturing setup, as well as on the export front, I always insist them to completely study the double taxation avoidance treaties, at least with the countries where we have a decent presence. We need to know about it. We need to know about the local laws. We cannot confine ourselves to the domestic laws today. And with this, I wish you have a great session. Please enjoy the day. And thanks once again for Captain and Suresh for giving this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. A very thought-provoking address. A lot of ideas to take away from there. Ladies and gentlemen, with this we come to the close of the inaugural session. There are a few more formalities, but before that, it's a pleasure for us. Yeah, it's a pleasure for us to honor the dignitaries. First, let me have the pleasure of requesting Mr. Suresh to hand over a memento as a token of our appreciation to Mr. Gopala Desikan, who has taken time off to be with us today. And of course, we are missing the presence of Mr. Mukesh Butani amongst our midst. Sir, thank you so much for joining us online. We wish we could present you a memento here as well. But since we can't do that today, what we will do is we'll present you with a virtual memento. And this is what it looks like. On your behalf, we take pride in presenting lunch for some government-aided school children. This is what we do. We do a lot of CSR work at MMA. We work with a lot of schools. and we adopt some of these government-aided schools and government schools. So on behalf of people like you who come and spare time with us, we do these activities. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Grateful.
Now may I request Mr. Suresh to propose the formal vote of thanks. He is the chairman IFA, Chennai branch, chartered accountant.
Hello. So it's always a privilege and pleasure to give a vote of thanks. It's going to be always a very difficult job also, because we always be conscious about whom we missed out to thank. So by any chance, if I miss out somebody, so sincere apologies. First and foremost, I need to thank our IFA India chairman, Mukesh Butani, despite his very, very busy schedule, decided to inaugurate and give the opening remarks. Thank you, Mukesh ji, for your presence and your setting the tone. And Vice Chairman, Mr. Prasad, was always at any time available for us to guide and give the support. Thank you, sir. Thanks for presence physically. So any program of this nature, if Mukesh is to be present here today virtually, and of course, we are going to have a couple of speakers outside India also been present here and delivered the lecture. And this is possible because of the Captain Vijayakumar and the MMA team for facilitating this wonderful infrastructure, without which we would not have done this. Thank you, Vijay ji, for the wonderful support. When we thought about, apart from Mukesh, who should be, our immediate thought was Mr. Gopala Desikan, because from a pure Indian company, and you'll know earlier they were associated with Suzuki. After the partnership terminated, many people would have thought, what will happen to TVS? But today, they have demonstrated that without Suzuki, they can be there in the world. And therefore, so we thought it's appropriate somebody from that group, that's like Chennai-based IFA branch doing the program. A Chennai-based company has gone international. We thought someone from there should represent. Thank you, sir, for a wonderful presenter, giving a wonderful inaugural address. The entire program team was actually our vice chairman and the entire team sat upon just to fix this theme of contemporary issues in international tax. I would especially thank our vice chairman, Sir Sudarshan, though he's not personally present here, he's away from India, but he will also give the conference finishing touches. Our treasurer, Prasanna, secretary Vijay, and the entire team for putting together a wonderful program. In fact, we initially wanted to have this program before 1st February, because 1 to 15th of February, any chartered account advocate wants to know only one thing, they want to talk about the budget, nothing else. So therefore, we thought we should finish before that. But somehow it could not happen on January 27th, because somebody told before that it is a Republic Day. And before that, people might go for a 4-day holidays. Therefore, we should have it after February. So when we planned for 11th February, our knowledge partners were not available. So therefore, we have to move to the next one. Of course, our Hyderabad had a program on 16th. So therefore, we have to move to 24th. When it's 24th, we thought somebody will say it's the last week of the month. So therefore, we thought, okay, we'll have March 3rd. So again, our people started. Somebody from our team suggested March 3rd is a Mughurtanal, whether people will come. Somebody said today's Ega Desi, will they have food? So what will happen? Say in the rate Lapona, we cannot have the program any day. Let's go on March 3rd, whatever we so therefore we had it on today. So at the point of time, so immediately our immediate thought process was, when we designed this program, we should first approach Pricewaterhouse. And my good friend, Mr. Madan, when I talked to him, he said, except 11th February, any day, we'll be very happy to associate. Thank you, Madan, and entire PwC team for being a part of a knowledge partner, along with CNGSN. So always I used to tell in the my classes, who is most important? For which I used to tell one small story. So when a patient was taken to a hospital, the doctor will be saying, I am the most important person because I have to do the surgery, without which the patient will not be alive. The nurse used to think in her mind, so now the doctor may do a surgery, but post-surgery, the doctor doesn't know anything. I have to take care of the patient. So likewise, each one of them will say who is important. Suddenly the patient will get up and say, I am the most important person. So likewise, which is important, the teacher, the book or anything, but I think no program is important without the participants. And I think today it just reflects the India's demographic. I think first time from 1990, I've been speaking in many programs and many seminars. The first time I'm seeing where the delegates consist of close to 70-80% is under 35, which is demography of India. So as Desikan was pointing out, it's India's decade. There's no doubt about it. That is reflected in today's elegance. And you are the most important person. Without you, this program will be completely unsuccessful. Thank you all for presenting a large numbers on a working day, on a Ekadasi, on a Muhurta and all, everything, whatnot. Because whenever we have a program, when we keep on weekday, people say you're keeping on weekday. When you keep a weekend, say you're keeping on weekend. So, but with all these things, your presence, a large number, is extremely thankful to all of you. Enjoy the program. We have created a wonderful team. We have brought in some wonderful speakers, and it will be definitely knowledge piece for all of you. So thank you for coming in large numbers. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh. With this, we have come to the end of the inaugural session. Now moving into the technical session 1, gazing into the tax disputes.